We're talking about food and nutrition today. So nutrition and fluids are an important part of health. It's something that obviously we can't sustain life without it. When we looked at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we talked about how that bottom pyramid was our physical needs, our food, shelter, clothing, water. Those are things all essential for life. So we will be looking at nutrition as we're going through this class, and we will be, sorry, it's not forwarding here. So when we talk about nutrition, it is a basic need for life and for health. But it also provides pleasure. If you think about, what do you guys do when you go on a date? You eat. Or you have a family reunion, or you have a birthday party. We all get together and we eat. There's just such a sense of pleasure that's associated with eating. And it's something about, in one of the later classes, we'll be talking about feeding tubes. And we're talking about when people can't eat for some reason and they have to be fed with a tube. Sometimes depression, there's such an emotional and psychological impact with that because it does provide pleasure. Now, there are many things that influence our dietary practices, and we'll be looking at quite a few of those, but things like your finances. I mean, good food is expensive. Your personal tastes, your religion, your cultures, all of those things are going to impact on the food that you choose for your dietary practices. So nutrition is the process involved of ingestion, digestion, absorption, and use of food and fluids in the body. So we eat our food, we ingest it, we digest it, our body starts breaking it down, it absorbs the foods that it can use out of it and the fluids into the body. We have to have this for growth, for healing, and for body functions. Have to have it. And it's really, you're going to see residents, when we get into the nursing home, you're going to see some of the residents over there, they'll have a diagnosis sometimes of what's called failure to thrive. And sometimes when a patient ends up in a nursing home, I mean, they'll have been taken care of by their family members at home, and now maybe their condition's deteriorating or it's getting worse and the family members don't feel they can adequately take care of them anymore. They bring them into a nursing home, and a lot of times you'll see these residents, they just quit eating, just kind of give up on life. And it's a very sad thing to watch. The calories are the fuel or energy value of the food. So our food has nutrients in it, and nutrients are the things that we get from the food that after we digest our food and it gets absorbed through the body, the nutrients are absorbed, and they're the things that will actually do specific functions for our body. So our food, the nutrients that we're going to be learning about, we'll talk about protein, we'll talk about fats, carbohydrates, vitamins, and minerals. And then your book also lists water as a nutrient, and you do need water to distribute that food everywhere. I remember when I took my nutrition class, I remember that water was a nutrient, but it does help get all the nutrients to where they need to go. But all of those nutrients, all the food that we eat, is measured in calories. And calories is how much that food is going to break down, how much fuel or energy value that food can have for us or produce for us. So the digestive system, when a person takes in food, and think about this too, just even when you smell food, you start actually salivating. You don't even necessarily have to be eating for this to happen, but normally when you start to eat food, your body produces saliva in the mouth to help kind of lubricate the food and to make swallowing a little bit easier. It'll also actually start breaking the food down. So you chew your food, and the saliva, which does have some digestive properties to it, are going to start breaking that food down into what we call a bolus of food. You swallow it, and when you swallow it, your epiglottis closes over the tracheal opening, so the food is going to go down the esophagus. Your esophagus has these peristaltic waves, these wave-like contractions, which help move the food down to the stomach. So you notice here, when you were looking at one of the earlier chapters on directionality of terms, and one of the things is quadrants. It broke the stomach into 4 sections, and your stomach's up in that left upper quadrant. Your liver and your gallbladder and stuff are in your right upper quadrant. In your left lower quadrant is, you've got intestines and your bowel, and then in your right quadrant is also some more bowel and some intestines, and then the appendix is here. But when your food hits that stomach, the stomach now sends digestive juices, secretes these digestive juices in with the food, and it starts breaking that food down even more. So then we have what's called chyme, and then it's going to start coming through the small intestines. So your stomach is going to go here, and the food's going to come through the small intestines. This would be the duodenum. So your small intestines is broken down to the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. And the ileum is what connects over here to the large intestines, and then you have your large intestines. But it's here in these small intestines that your food starts absorbing all those nutrients that it needs. And so food absorption primarily happens in the small intestines. And then whatever's left from the foods that your body can't digest, it comes into the large intestines, and it comes, so the ileum connects to the large intestines right over here, and it's going to come up the colon and across and down, and then it's going to come out the rectum and the anus. The part of the fruits and the vegetables and the grains that you eat that your body cannot use are going to come out in the form of a bowel movement. Now the other thing that happens in the large intestines is you have water reabsorption that happens here. So your body will try to hang on to water. So if a person has not enough fluids in their body, because a lot of times we're going to find out that our elderly population, a lot of times, they stay in a slightly mildly dehydrated state. They don't want to drink as much fluids because they don't want to have to go to the bathroom as much. They don't like being incontinent. They don't like having to wait for help. And so they tend not to drink as much, and so they get more dehydrated. When that happens, when there's not as much, when a person's not drinking as much, your colon tries to reabsorb more water, and that's going to make that stool hard and dry. And that's why our elderly population frequently has issues with constipation. The other thing is those wave-like contractions we talked about going down the esophagus to push the food from the mouth down to the stomach. You will have wave-like contractions that move things through your gut. So you have that peristalsis movement. And when a person gets older, peristalsis decreases. Okay, peristalsis decreases, and so that's going to make the person more prone to constipation as well. Now, myplate.gov, the government is very involved in good nutrition, or tries to be. They don't feel America makes really good choices on their own. And we used to have the food pyramid, and over the years there have been many variations to the food pyramid, and now they're using the plate system. So if you go online and you typed in myplate.gov, there is tons and tons of information about proper nutrition and good health. But basically they say you should have, if you look at your plate, half of your plate should consist of fruits and vegetables. Another quarter of your plate should be grains, and then another section being protein. Now, then they say dairy on the side. You'll notice that even though fats was listed as a nutrient, and fats are important, you do need them for good health, you don't see fat listed on here. That's because your proteins generally have fat in it, your dairy generally has fat in it, some grains tend to, so even some like avocados can have fat in them. So even though we tend to, even though people think of fat as being an unhealthy thing, it's actually important for us. You just don't find extra on your plate because it's already threaded through so many of your foods. So what they recommend is vegetables. Eat a variety of vegetables. And that's going to consist of any vegetable or 100% vegetable juice will count as the vegetable group. Though they are going to tell you when you go onto myplate.gov, it is best to eat the vegetables whole versus just vegetable juices, because then you get so much more pulp and fiber. And that pulp and fiber is not a nutrient, but it's the part of the fruits and vegetables and grains that your body cannot digest, and it helps things move through your gut. It speeds up peristalsis, so things don't sit in your gut for too long of a time, and it also helps combat with constipation. So they do recommend with fruits and vegetables, even though fruit juice, vegetable juice will count, they say it's better to eat the whole item if possible. So fruits, whole fruit preferable to juice, but both of them are going to count. So half of our plate every day should be filled with fruits and vegetables. Grains, they want you to make at least half of your grains whole grains. So look at the labels, and then on the labels it'll tell you if it's a whole grain food, whole wheat, oatmeal, brown rice, all of those are considered nice healthy grains. Your protein, they recommend with lean protein sources. Keep a portion to about 1/4 of the plate. Now I know a really big tendency nowadays is high protein diets, and that's fine unless you have kidney problems. If you have kidney problems, they really don't recommend high protein diets because it is kind of hard on the kidneys to filter it through. And I will say, as a general rule, I think if you're going to be on a high protein diet for any length of time, it's really something you should be checking in with your doctor for. I've had students tell me before, well, I have 200 milligrams of protein a day. You know, I talked to one of the dietitians at the hospital where I also work, and they were saying that generally when they're calculating a person's protein needs, they look at 0.75 to 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. Okay, so a kilogram of body weight is equivalent to 2.2 pounds. So, you know, let's say you're a 220-pound person, that's going to put you at 100 kilograms. That means 75 to 100 grams of protein a day is really all you should be having. And I asked him, I said, well, you know, what about when somebody's had injuries, and because protein is so important for tissue growth and repair. And they said even when they have people with a lot of injuries and they want to increase a protein diet, they still don't recommend more than 1.2 grams per kilogram of protein. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there. I know protein diets are a really big thing nowadays, a really big fad. But you do need to be careful with that, especially if you're doing this long term, because it can be hard on the kidneys. But they recommend lean proteins, your nuts, your seeds, your beans, poultry, lean meats, seafood, eggs, all of that's going to fit into this category. And then our dairy, they want you to get calcium-rich foods. It is much healthier for your body to get your calcium from food sources than to take it from a calcium supplement. So so they recommend skim milk or non-fat milk because we don't really need a lot of extra fat. Go easy on the cheeses, skim yogurts, those are all good sources. So some general guidelines on myplate.gov: eat a variety of foods, eat more of some foods, less of others, maintain a normal weight. It's much more healthy for you to maintain a normal weight than to be losing, gaining, losing, gaining, losing, gaining. Stay physically fit, alcohol in moderation, and when you are trying to make changes, just make some small steps. Grab an extra fruit or vegetable for a snack instead of those chips, or grab a water instead of a soda can. You know, I mean, it just makes small and incorporate small changes to try to get things going. I thought this looks really cute. The little caption underneath it, if it doesn't get cut off, it says you need to go on a balanced diet. And the guy's kind of leaning over. I think many of us could really improve our diet. Sometimes we just really don't even realize everything we're putting in our bodies until we actually kind of track it for a while. And there's a lot of apps you can use on your phone to help you track your the nutritional value of the foods that you're eating. And I highly recommend that you write down your food content for a day, everything you eat, and look it up. And you might be surprised at those totals of fat content, of sodium content, of some of these things that you're taking in. So the nutrients we'll look at are protein, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, minerals, and water. So protein, the recommended intake is 10 to 35% of your diet should be protein. And again, lean sources: fish, chicken, lean meats. And when we say lean meats, we're talking about if you are eating beef, it should be food that doesn't have a lot of fat marbled through it. When you see a lot of fat marbled through it, it's not lean. Legumes, beans, lentils, things like that. One of the biggest things it does is it builds and maintains muscles, organs, skin, and blood. So it helps your body with tissue growth and repair. So if you've had an injury, you've had surgery, very, very important to have good protein sources. To make sure you're taking in enough protein and have good protein sources. A lot of doctors, if you're on rapid weight loss programs, so if you have a bariatric patient, someone who's losing weight really quickly, they'll recommend really high protein counts for these people just to help them kind of maintain as much of their muscle mass as they can while they're losing weight. It also will assist in energy metabolism and cell processes, so it does produce energy, and it helps defend the body against disease through building our immune function. Our carbohydrates, they are our main source of energy. Now, we said proteins produce energy, and they do, and fats also produce energy, but carbohydrates are probably our main source of it. And they also can create an energy reserve. They can actually, it will actually store carbohydrates in the form of glycogen in your body. So if you ever have periods of starvation or high stress to your body, or you're excessively exercising or something, you have those extra reserves. The other thing that carbohydrates do is if you are having whole grains, if you're doing whole grains for your carbohydrates, they also are good in fiber. And again, fiber is not a nutrient, but it is the part of the fruits and vegetables and grains that your body cannot absorb, and then that ends up helping move things through your gut, makes you go to the bathroom a little bit easier, keeps things from sitting in the gut too long. So it's also been shown to help prevent some cancers and heart disease. Fats. Fats, another name for it is lipids, and the recommended dietary intake is 20 to 35% of your meals should be from fats. Now, I know there's a lot of diets out there that are high protein, high fats right now, but I am going to tell you, and some of the physicians are really okay with the high fat, high diet. The majority of them still kind of think you're better off to just have whole grains, lean meats, fruits and vegetables, more that Mediterranean style diet that they found in the Mediterranean area. People have less heart disease, less strokes, less disease in general, and they really feel it's due to their diet because they have diets a lot in fish, good omega-3 fatty acids. They eat a lot of fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, lean meats, whole grains, and they really think that that's probably one of the best diets that you can go on, especially for a long-term life-sustaining type of diet. What fat does for us is it does produce energy. So it does produce energy, and you actually have a reserve of fat. So if in between meals, times of starvation, during endurance exercises, you actually have an extra energy store. It's essential for cell membranes. It acts as a shock absorber for bones and organs. And even if you're a normal weight, you have some fat that actually lines around your organs just for some warmth and protection. Unsaturated fats decrease risk of heart disease, and your omega-3 fatty acids assist in growth, development, and brain function. I thought this was really cute. So the guy says freeze, and the other cop says to him, is it a homicide? Is it a burglary? He goes, worse, it's trans fat. So they tell him to step away from the chicken. So I think there are 3 types of fats that I call them the good, the bad, and the ugly. We have the good fats, the bad fats, and the really bad fats. So our good fats are unsaturated fats, and people tend to think of fat as being an unhealthy thing altogether, and it isn't. Unsaturated fats, and those are usually clear at room temperature. It's your olive oils, your canola oils, avocado oils. You can get some of the unsaturated fats in nuts and seeds. But what unsaturated fats do is that you have good cholesterol and bad cholesterol in your body. So you have HDL cholesterol, high density lipoprotein cholesterol, and LDL, low density lipoprotein cholesterol. And they used to think it was just your total cholesterol value that was the indicator of whether you'd be more prone to heart disease and stroke. And they found it's really more the ratio of the good to the bad, which is a better indicator of heart disease and stroke risk. But what they have found is that unsaturated fats raise your good cholesterol, the good kind, the kind your body needs. And it also helps lower the bad. So with your good unsaturated fats, you're raising your good cholesterol, which you want. You're lowering your bad, which is even better. It's going to help decrease your risk of a lot of disease processes. Your bad fats, your saturated fats, they tend to raise total cholesterol levels, and they raise the bad cholesterol. So you not only get that spike in your total cholesterol level, you get that spike with the bad cholesterol being the one that's being raised up. Now the really bad fats, the trans fats are made by adding hydrogen to vegetable oil. It's called hydrogenation. And I'll tell you, hydrogenation gives you a lot longer shelf life with things. It lets things last longer. And unfortunately, usually when they do these things, a lot of it also helps increase with flavor. But what the trans fats do is it not only raises the bad cholesterol like saturated fats, it also lowers the good. So you get a double whammy here. You raise your cholesterol values, you raise your bad, you lower your good, so your ratios are all out of whack, and it's going to put you much more at risk of potential disease. Now, when we look at how much fat is in something, so when we're looking at how much fat is in something, If I could just scoop up a teaspoon of butter, so just think of a margarine tub, okay, or Crisco oil. You've got this tub of butter there. If I go have a Big Mac and fries, and I'm not saying you can't have a Big Mac and fries, absolutely you can, but if you eat out every day, you want to make sure you're making some healthy choices for you. I go get that Big Mac and French fries, and if I translate that to how many just scoops of fat that actually is, for every 4.2 grams of fat, it's equivalent to 1 teaspoon. Yeah, 11 teaspoons of fat. So imagine 11 teaspoons of butter sitting on a plate. That's basically what you're equivalent to eating. Okay? But you think of chicken as being healthy, you put it in a chicken pot pie and it's really not too much better, unfortunately. Fat tastes good. Fat has a lot of flavor to it, and so it's sometimes something that people tend to eat too much of. But 10 teaspoons of fat in a chicken pot pie. So I'm just kind of wanting you to realize it's kind of important that you take a look at what you're eating on a daily basis, and it's it's really going to show you maybe some simple things you can do to make some better choices. All restaurants that you go to are, well, not all restaurants that are have a chain to it or more than one store are required to give you the nutritional facts of the foods that you're eating. So you can go into any fast food restaurant pretty much that you like and ask for the nutritional facts, and they have to give them to you. But also, you guys, you can just pull it up on your phone. You can put in nutritional facts of a Big Mac and French fries, and it's going to be there for you. I thought this was cute. It says, I'm sick of fast food. Of course, we're looking at it in a different perspective. I just remember, as you know, when my girls were little, I'd have worked all day. I swung by to pick them up after school. They went to like a daycare program. I'd pick them up on my way home. I was tired. I was going back to school to work on my degree, and I was so I'm working as a nurse. I'm trying to deal with my kids. I'm trying to go back to school, and I was just tired all the time, and I didn't feel like cooking. I don't really like to cook anyway. So when my kids would say, "Hey, could we stop at McDonald's?" It's like, "Yay, McDonald's!" Well, fine, but if you do that on a regular basis, they do make, every fast food restaurant nowadays makes healthy choices, so keep that in mind. So vitamins, so our proteins produce energy, our carbohydrates produce energy, our fats produce energy. Vitamins don't actually produce energy, but they are essential. They actually release the enzymes. They assist in the enzyme reactions that do release the energy in your body. So sometimes I hear people say, well, I feel really tired and run down. I need some energy. I better take my vitamins. Your vitamins don't actually produce energy, but they do help with the enzyme reactions so your body can utilize energy from the other sources. And we have fat-soluble vitamins and water-soluble vitamins. And our fat-soluble vitamins are stored in the body. They can be stored in the body, so you can actually take too much. They can be dangerous. And those are vitamins A, D, E, and K. And then the water-soluble vitamins are C and B complexes, and they're not stored in the body. I liked this little chart. It talks about vitamin A that we use for healthy teeth, skin, and eyes, and really good sources are eggs, meat, milk, cheese, your dark green leafy vegetables, carrots. I think most people know about carrots. Your vitamin B helps body use food, energy, digest proteins, functions in central nervous system. Again, lean meats, eggs, fish, dairy products, soybeans, broccoli, cabbage, whole grains. C helps our immune system, helps wound healing, helps with iron absorption. Citrus fruits, green peppers, strawberries, tomatoes, broccolis. D is known as our sunshine vitamin. And I will tell you, a lot of people, they're finding that a lot of people have vitamin D deficiencies now. You really need only 10 to 15 minutes a day out in the sun, in direct sunlight, to get enough vitamin D into your body. That actually absorbs through your skin, and it's needed. If you don't absorb enough vitamin D, your body cannot absorb calcium, which you need for your bones and your teeth. So what they're doing now, and part of the reason that's happening is, one, I know with kids nowadays, I mean, when I was a kid, my mom would say, go outside and play and come back when it's dark. I mean, we didn't play in the house. We were told to stay outside. And my parents were never worried about somebody stealing us or somebody taking us. Times have changed. And you don't really feel comfortable nowadays sending your kids outside to play unless somebody's out there watching them. And so sometimes that's hard to do if you're working and going to school and doing a lot of different things. So we're finding that, one, kids don't go outside and play as much as they used to, and then the other issue with it is when we do send kids out to play, we also say put sunscreen on them so they don't burn. Well, that's helping decrease that absorption of the vitamin D as well. So what they're doing nowadays is they are substituting, they are fortifying vitamin D. All your dairy products now have vitamin D in them. Your juices, most of them have vitamin D. So you're going to start seeing a lot of extra vitamin D fortified foods now because they're finding that people are quite deficient in it. Vitamin E protects the body against damage from free radicals, helps from red blood cells to help. And then wheat germ, corn, nuts, seeds, olives, spinach, green leafy vegetables. And then K is for blood clotting and strong bones. Now, our minerals, there are lots and lots of minerals, and we're only really going to talk about 3 of them that I'm going to kind of hone in on a little bit. When you take a nutrition course, you'll, of course, get lots more information. This is just going to be an overview for you. But we're going to be looking at calcium, which is really important for bone and tooth formation. It also impacts nerve and muscle function as well. Sodium for fluid balance. And oxygen transport, we're going to be talking about iron. So our recommended intake, 1,200 milligrams a day for calcium. And just to give you an idea, a glass of milk, an 8-ounce glass of milk, is going to have about 300 milligrams of calcium a day. So it is something that, we're talking you probably need 4 servings of milk or milk products a day. And a lot of people don't care for milk. And you can do soy milk or almond milk. I mean, those are other really good sources, has a ton of calcium in them. A lot of your green leafy vegetables have calcium in it. As far as taking it in a food source versus taking it in a dietary supplement, they have found that if you take it in a food source, so whether you take food source or you take it in a dietary supplement, it will help with your bone and teeth structure. It makes your bones nice and strong, your teeth nice and strong. And whether you take it in supplemental form or food item, that will happen. But it also aids in muscle contraction and dilation of the blood vessels, which is kind of makes it cardioprotective for you. And they have found that isn't as good when you take it from a supplement source versus taking it from a food item. So if you can, get your calcium from food sources. But if you can't, you are still better to take it from a supplement than to not take it at all. So it's really important for bone and teeth structure. It helps prevent with osteopenia and osteoporosis, which is your weak bones. Also can help if you have issues with hypertension, especially because that contraction and dilatation of the vessels, if it's not as good, your heart has to pump against more resistance. So it really is a very important mineral. And they find that generally when a person's going through puberty, so teenage and through their mid-20s or so, your bones are taking in the most calcium they will probably ever take in. After that, your bones actually start, so from your mid-20s to your mid-30s, late 30s, your bones, the calcium you take in then kind of helps you maintain what you have, and then your bones start losing calcium. And then after menopause, especially for women, it starts dropping even faster. So you really need to make your bones nice and strong while you're young, if you can. And if you have kids, that's something you want to keep in mind. Iron tends to make hemoglobin, and hemoglobin is in your red blood cells. So iron makes hemoglobin, which is in your red blood cells. It's found in the muscle, the myoglobin. And it also makes it part of some of the proteins in the body. It helps aid with protein use in the body. But if you don't have enough iron in the body, your body doesn't make enough hemoglobin. And if you don't make enough hemoglobin is what binds with oxygen. So your red blood cells, the hemoglobin in the red blood cells binds with oxygen, and that's what carries oxygen throughout your body. So if you're not taking in enough iron, chances are you're probably not, it can impact your oxygen carrying capacity. So things we consider rich in iron, most of your meats, egg products, shrimp, clams, but your beef, liver, pork, chicken. You know, when I was a kid, my mom, the Surgeon General for the United States, came out with a statement right about the time I was going through puberty, and it said that they did not feel girls were taking in enough iron, that most girls did not take in enough iron products, and because they had a menstrual cycle, they were actually losing extra iron at that time, and so they really recommended that once a week girls eat liver once a week. It's one of the highest sources of iron out there. So my mother, anything the Surgeon General said, my mother took it as gospel, and my mom would make me eat liver once a week. Now, I cannot stand liver. I have had it boiled and fried and grilled and every way you could possibly fix it. I think it's the most disgusting thing I've ever smelled. I still gag when I smell it today. And my mom would make me eat it once a week because it was supposed to be good for me. So that lasted for about a year. And then the Surgeon General came out with a statement and said, you know, we really do feel girls need more iron, and it's really important that they get better iron sources, but maybe liver isn't the best source, because you guys, what does your liver do for you? Okay? Your liver filters toxins out of the body. Same with any animal's liver. And so livers are one of the most toxic organs that you could potentially eat. And so they were like, oh, maybe, yes, we need more iron, but maybe that's not the best source of it anymore. So my mom looked at me, she goes, hey, I guess you don't have to eat liver anymore. Oh my God, 1 year, once a week. To this day, and this was, I can't tell you how many years ago that was, but to this day, I still gag at liver. But broccoli, spinach are really good sources. They usually fortify cereals with it now. So there are a lot of good other sources of iron. And then the other mineral I want to talk about is sodium. And you really only need about 1,500 milligrams of sodium per day. Actually, what you need, you only really need 180 to 500 milligrams a day. They would like you to stay around 1,500 milligrams. Now, your book is going to talk about how you should stay less than 2,400 milligrams of sodium, but then there will be a little caveat note that says if you have heart disease, if you have kidney issues, if you have high blood pressure, you should shoot for 1,500 milligrams of sodium or less. I will tell you that the American Heart Association, the American Cardiology Association, the American Stroke Foundation, most of them recommend just trying to shoot for that 1,500 milligrams of sodium a day, because it is really hard to do. Most foods have extra salt in them. Salt makes a good preservative for some foods. It gives you longer shelf life, and so it is something that sometimes it's really hard not to eat way too much salt. To give you an idea, 2,400 milligrams of sodium is 1 teaspoon of salt. So we're saying you should only have about 3/4 a teaspoon of salt. That means you should not be salting your food. You shouldn't be cooking with salt. And you really want to watch those really salty items like potato chips, things like that. What sodium does do for you, it is important, but it helps you regulate water and electrolyte imbalance. So it's very important. It helps you regulate holding on to more water when you need to, getting rid of excess water when you need to. So it's really important in water balance and electrolyte balance. It also helps maintain acid-base balance of your body, and it's required for nerve and muscle function. So it's really an important part of good health, but you only need 180 to 500 milligrams, and I'm telling you, 1 teaspoon is 2,400 milligrams. You can see why we really probably don't need a lot of extra salt in our diet as a general rule. Now, what you're going to find at the nursing homes is if you go to a hospital, if you work in a hospital as a CNA, they are going to tell you, the doctor will order a low sodium diet, 1,500 milligrams a day. That's pretty typical for a low sodium diet. If you're in the nursing home, again, this is their home, and so they don't usually order it that way. They'll just put NAS, no added salt. No added salt. So usually when you see NAS on the diet, you know that person probably has either heart issues or kidney issues, that they're not wanting them to take that extra salt in, and there should not be salt packets on their food. Now, water, I know your book lists water as a nutrient, and that's fine. It's not that it really has nutritional value, but what it does do is it gets that water and that fluid gets those nutrients to the parts of the body where it needs to be. So lack of water can lead to dehydration. If you're not taking in enough fluids, your body can become dehydrated. If you're taking in tons of extra water, then your body can actually, hopefully your body will just excrete the extra water, you'll just urinate more. But if for some reason it doesn't, then you can actually get edema, where you can get swelling of your tissues. Now, as a general rule, When we talked about urinary elimination, we said that the normal urine output for a person, or normal urine output for a day from most people, of course it always varies on intake, is around 1,500 milliliters a day. But in general, doctors recommend 8 to 9 cups of water a day, so that's around 2,000, 2,500 milliliters of fluid. So your average fluid intake for most people is between 2,000 and 2,500. Output is usually 1,500. So why are they not matching? Why is not what's coming in going out? And the thing you have to remember is you don't just lose volume through your urine. You lose volume through perspiration, through bowel movements, through sweat. So there's other ways we lose it. So we don't really expect our intake and our output to match exactly. It's not unusual for our intake to be a little higher than our output. We kind of expect that. But at the same time, if we are noticing that our urine output is, our intake is, say, 1,500 milliliters on our shift. The person was just drinking, and it's 1,500 milliliters on our shift, and they only put out 300 in an 8-hour period. That's really off, because generally people are going to be within 500 to 1,000 milliliters for the entire day. So you would not really expect about more than 500 a shift. That's actually kind of excessive, and it's just something you would kind of want to report to the nurse, just so they can kind of follow it the next shift. It may catch itself up the next time, it may not. Now what you're going to find is in hospitals we tend to do intake and outputs. We measure everything coming in, everything going out on every patient in the hospital. But again, in a nursing home, this is their home. Most people don't usually do that in their own home, but we do just want to kind of make sure that they are drinking and that they are peeing. So let's go ahead and stop here and just take a quick stretch break.